Hello and welcome to another episode of Lies, Dirty Lies and Statistics. I'm Fabricio Ide. We have with us a man that's fed with organic, sustainably sourced data. That's all he eats. That's all he looks at. This man is the one and only Sam, known simply as Sam. Sam, let's do it. Let's kick off. We're going to be breaking down the Makhachev versus Oliveira fight, part two. It's I think it's an interesting thing when we do this because a lot of it is it takes away like I thought. So you're actually looking at the data, which is what's interesting. I feel with these kind of things. Yeah, Sammy, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So first up, we're looking at Oliveira. Just in a total fighter kind of breakdown of his history in the UFC. In the UFC, he's got 22 wins, 9 losses.
I think that overall, even with seeing that, I think you have to understand the way that Oliveira fights. Oliveira is a very feast or famine kind of fighter. Like he can come in and blitz people, submit them, knock them out. He's a jumping bean. He's got flying knees. He's got a whole everything. Everything's in his arsenal. But then he can also, lose in quite emphatic fashion as well. I think with Charles, I'll just give a little bit of background myself. I actually had the pleasure of training with a young Charles Oliveira in Brazil for quite a time, for a few weeks. And he was only a kid. He was way before he was Charles Oliveira. But even back then, I saw him fight. He was probably 17, 18 years old. I saw him fight three grown men in one night. And he finished one of them with a flying knee. And yeah, he was really, really, really talented kid, really, really talented fighter. So it's, and he's a big guy too. As people don't realize, like he's got really big hands, big head, big skull. He's a big boy. He's broad, really broad. And that's one of the reasons, well, he fights very tall. His head's up. And he doesn't have the best, in my opinion, head movement in that. It's better now. It is better now, but he still stands a little tall, in my opinion. But he's aggressive, and he's mean and he goes forward. So that's just my little take on having trained with him a little bit. Not much. I was not instrumental in his success in any stretch of the imagination. If anything, I may have been detrimental to his success. Do you want to talk us through some of this stuff, Sam?
I think I kind of had a look before and I was looking at something kind of interesting that he's had 6 5-round fights. And none of them have gone past the 3rd round. So he's never had a 4th and a 5th round in the UFC. He's lost 2 of them and won 4 of those, but it's all been before the 4th round.
And it always is a feast or famine thing with him. Like I feel like it's either he blitzes you or he's out. You know what I mean? And more often than not, he's going to blitz you. I think that it was really interesting with Makhachev in their fight because Makhachev was very patient. He's a very wily character. Both of these guys, again, you're talking about guys that have had, before Charles had fought in MMA. Look, first of all, Charles had a professional career from a very young age, as I said earlier, and Makhachev has an extensive Sambo background. So, and Charles also has a competitive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background. So both of these guys bringing a wealth of amateur experience, if you will, to the forefront. But I feel that Makhachev was very wily in this particular fight. I think he catches people unawares, and I think it happened with Volkanovski as well. I think how hard he can crack is something that kind of throws people off a bit because he can really, really crack. Like he doesn't, not necessarily like the biggest hitter in the division, but you're so concerned with his grappling and, man, he can crack and he hits hard. Sorry, go on, Sam.
Yeah, so if you look at that fight with Oliveira, the last fight with Oliveira and Makhachev, in that first round, Makhachev scored him 51 total strikes landed. He threw 60 in total. So he's landed 51 of 60, but they only attributed 12 of those as significant strikes from the UFC. So A lot of that too was on the ground. So I don't know if they just didn't class it, if it was glancing blows or something, but yeah, they didn't attribute a lot of his strikes, and that was a lot higher than Makhachev's kind of long-term average in round one, where he generally lands about 19 to 20 or so. So a lot higher work rate in that first round, but they didn't attribute it to him as well. So I'm not sure if he kind of has that range finding jab a bit as well. So I don't know if they kept tallying that up as part of the total strikes as well. But yeah,
I think in the fight, when you're watching it in hindsight, and this is, I think, more so in hindsight, and people will disagree with this, and please let me know in your comments, like and subscribe if you haven't already. But I think when you watch it, like in hindsight, the moment the fight was finished, everyone's like, oh shit, Islam just ran a train, just killed him. But Charles had moments. It was definitely, especially in hindsight, a complete domination, and I was one of the people that couldn't believe how good Islam was if he could do that to Charles, But I also think that there were Charles had moments in the fight. I just don't feel that he was able to capitalize on some of those things, and I don't know exactly why. I don't know what were one of the things is when he did have Islam on the back foot, or with Islam's back against the cage. Islam is not a guy that likes to fight moving backwards. He likes to fight moving forwards. He likes the pressure. Similar to Khabib tactically, but not technically. Technically, they're very, very vastly different. And I feel that I didn't see as much, I thought, but maybe the stats say different. I didn't see as much front body kicks. Because a lot of his distance work, this we're talking about Charles, begins with his kicks. He kicks the midsection. I just got some notes here with front kicks and teeps. A lot of teeps. He comes from shootbox originally, and yeah, that's the kind of stuff that they do, like a lot of Muay Thai type of stuff, which is funny because in the clinch, I also thought that I'd see more knees to the stomach of Islam, because they both like to clinch, but Charles does your more Muay Thai type of clinches. He does get the occasional body lock on people. He is very good at that as well, but generally he's looking for frames and Muay Thai land elbows and knees in that clinch, whereas Makhachev is looking to be able to throw you using his judo or sambo, whichever one you want to call it. So it's a different kind of clinch. Whilst it's still the clinch, and in the stats it'll look like clinch, the clinches, they're two sides of the same coin. They are very different at the same time. He also steps into round kicks. I just didn't see him chop the legs. He can chop the legs with a really good shift in his weight. He powers through his hips. He digs into his legs like proper Muay Thai. And he kicks hard to the midsection, kicks hard to the head. And I didn't see him do that a lot. I didn't see him do that a lot in this fight against Islam and move Islam backwards. But that's pretty that's pretty crazy. Like, as in, like, I also think, like I said, I think that there is a discrepancy also with where people underestimate how hard Islam cracks and how well he times. He's got really good timing. But we're on Oliveira at the moment, so a few of the things that I see, he doesn't jab as much as like you generally like. He probably jabs a little more than Muay Thai guys generally do. He still sticks a jab out, but he finds his range with his kicks. This is my opinion. That's like how he establishes distance. He's got a good lead hand, I think. I don't think it's a weak lead left hand. And he angles off, does good hard check hooks, and he's able to mix his weight. Like, he's able to change his weight and find a home for uppercuts, and particularly his left uppercut. He's rangy, so he's got a nice left hook. You saw it the way he did it to Chandler as well. I just think that something, I don't know what it was as well. I know that Makhachev sets up a lot of, you see him against Sarukian, how he sets up that foot sweep, he knees you, you go to knee him back and he foot sweeps you, or he knees you, you go to knee him back and he throws you. So he's very, very good at that. I don't know if Charles, what he was, well, if he thought this or not, I don't know, you know. On the ground, Islam didn't have it all his way. Islam took Charles down, and Charles was able to wrestle up beautifully by threatening a leg attack. And he didn't just like wrestle up. He wrestled up into quite an advantageous position, but he wasn't able to capitalize on it. Yeah, sorry, Sam, if you want to talk more of the statistics and what we have up there.
Now, just kind of reiterating what you were saying before. So in that first round, there was Charles only got one strike to the head. So he was only attributed for 6 significant strikes in total. Only one of those to the head, and the 5 remaining were to the body. So I'm assuming those teeps and body kicks there as well. But it only obviously went for 2 rounds, but in the first round and the second round, there was no leg strikes from Oliveira.
That's very interesting. That is,
yeah.
No, but especially when he does kick hard, you know what I mean? I don't know how much he looked into the strengths of Islam. I'm not sure. I'm just going to answer a few people's things here. The reality filter basically says Islam's striking is so underrated. He's much more technical with his striking than Khabib ever was. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. It's a different type of thing as well, even from their top control. The top control for Islam is based around him getting better positions, looking for submissions, securing the position that he has. Whereas Khabib will be somewhere in the position and he'll throw a big shot and then use that to advance, you know. So they're similar tactically, but technically they're very different. ISAT says, who is saying Islam's striking is bad? I don't know that anyone's saying that his striking is bad, but I do think that people, when they get in there, have to reassess and readjust a little bit. I don't think they're ready for his power. And particularly like when you see his left kick, he's able to throw that kick high and to the body with not much tell, which is, it's rare to see someone with such developed grappling prowess as Islam. Like you don't see that with people like that. And then he's able to throw those combinations like a lead left and a right hook and different combinations of that. He throws them really, really well. So I don't know that they're saying it's bad, but I don't think people realize until they're in there with him that he's got quite heavy hands. ISAT says, Javier said before Khabib was champ that Islam was better all-round fighter and to watch out for him. I think he's technically the better of the two for sure. The way that Khabib implements his tactics and that, he's very, very good. And also people don't understand this. And Jack Slack said this, and just shout out to Jack Slack. He's very, very good if you get a chance to listen to him. But he said the same thing. Like at any stage, the same way that Martin's caught Islam, Khabib could have been caught in some of his fights. I'm not saying Khabib, and I agree with this. It's not Jack Slack saying this, just him. There's a lot of people. There were like a lot of the guys before the UFC that Khabib fought. They weren't like, they were guys on massive losing streaks, you know what I mean, as well. So he didn't have he could have still lost. Don't get me wrong. Khabib's fantastic, but he's also managed really, really well, you know. And from back in the day, they did a great job of doing that. Sorry, Sammy, if you want to continue.
No, just your point before about Charles's strikes in the clinch as well. So, in that second round, he had 5 strikes in the clinch, whereas Makhachev only had 2. And also in that second round, which is obviously where it ended anyway, but Makhachev had 16 significant strikes from distance, whereas doubling Charles's 8. So that striking definitely shows between the two as well.
I think in the clinch, it's interesting because when you see him fight Poirier, every time Poirier would start to get his boxing going, Oliveira would reach out and tie up Poirier, grab onto his neck, like pummeling like in Thai boxing, and then he'd start to rip knees and just move him around. Big knees to Poirier's stomach, don't get me wrong, but also stopping him like from being able to get his boxing rhythm off as well. So it's just an interesting clash, you know. It's just an interesting, because if he does clinch with Makhachev and he can't get the frames that he needs to land the strikes, Makhachev's going to throw him or going to try to throw him. So it's just an interesting little thing. Reality Filter says, Khabib is the better grappler, but Islam is the more well-rounded MMA fighter, close to unbeatable in my opinion. I don't know. I think anyone's beatable. I don't know if Khabib is the better grappler. I don't know this. Like, I've never really seen them grapple each other or anything like that. But there, he imposes his grappling very, very, very well, though. That I will say. Sammy, if you want to keep going.
Yeah. Look at Islam.
Yeah, Islam or whatever the next slide is.
Yeah, so if we look at Islam overall as well in his UFC career, you can see he's got 13 wins in UFC and 1 loss, which was obviously a while ago.
Yeah, against Martins, 2015.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in.
So,
yeah.
But obviously as well, he's got some couple of five-round fights and that in his career as well that have actually gone the distance too. So he's got 6 submissions. He's got 5 wins by decision and 2 KOs.
I think with Makhachev in that particular fight, I think he was able to get off his shots earlier and better. He was able to be more patient than Charles. Charles came in again. Even when Charles got caught by that right hook, he came in with that flying knee and Makhachev was able to catch him. I don't think that it was necessarily. I don't know what that fight could have looked like as well. I think the problem is, and I'm not going to say lesser fighters, but there've been other fighters. There's been other fighters that have held Charles down, that have been able to hold Charles down. And that's the other thing is, man, there was some up kicks in there that could have landed at any stage and knocked Islam out. There was some that landed pretty well. There are positions that happen in that fight that could have gone different ways. Somebody's saying, how can you say Islam is unbeatable? He's been beaten. Yeah, I don't think any of them are unbeatable, but it's. I mean, I don't think Charles is going to be run over like that again. I just don't think it. You know what I mean? I think that, like somebody said, fair play to Volkanovski. He was able to push Islam the way he did, and that's another thing. I think when people talk about it, they don't realize how good Islam is and how good Volkanovski is, and the fact that Islam was able to beat him. I have a hard time. I have a very hard time giving 4 rounds to Islam, but I have a hard time giving 3 to Alex as well. And I'm going for Alex. I know Alex personally, but I was going for Alex. I thought maybe a draw if they gave that as a 10-8 to him for dropping him in the last round. But I watching it like that, I couldn't really find a way to give Alex 3 rounds, But I thought it was a good fight, and I thought it was testament to how good both of those guys are. I think it was a real masterpiece of a fight for them, and I haven't seen a better fight like that for a long, long time.
Do you know what rounds you would have given to? Do you know what rounds you would have given to Alex? I'm just looking at the punches, the strikes, and that Alex actually landed per round on the right hand side here. So,
and can you talk us through it? The Islam and Thingo fight.
Yeah. So the first round, if you look on the left hand side, you can see the offense. We'll look at this. We can break this down a different way later as well. But he's landed. He's got in that first round. He's landed 18 total strikes, but only 10.
Who are you talking about? Like Islam?
Yeah, Islam's landed 18 total strikes in that first round against Alex, and then he's only 10 of those are considered significant. And similarly for Volkanovski in that first round, he's landed 14, but 11 of those. So he's actually got a higher significant strikes in that first round as well.
Yeah, I don't know how it's also ranked. Like, because watching the fight, I didn't think it's hard to say because I don't even know how people give the significant strikes. You know what I mean? I thought it was very close. And in the first round, from memory, when he took his back and had that position, you know what? It's one of those fights that it's a close decision, but you can't. If they'd have given it to Alex, I wouldn't have thought it was a robbery. Do you know what I mean? I would have thought, good for Alex. You know what I mean? If they'd given it to Islam, like I said, I have a hard time giving Islam 4, and I have a hard time giving Alex 3. You know, but also depends how you score that knockdown. I don't know. So I'm not. Yeah. So, anyways, Sam, if you want to go on.
It's also that control that that back control and stuff as well that can't really be factored into this too. So yeah. And we can break it down a bit further later as well. But if we go to the next one and we're looking at them kind of side by side as well, so you can see all their stats on everything for Islam on the left and everything for Charles on the right hand side as well, just for comparison. If we look at their their wins in comparison to and kind of see how they've won as well, you can see that Charles actually has, on average, for his wins, he actually has a higher rate of significant strikes, and this is only per round. So obviously you've got to win the round, not just the fight, but on average per round, he generally has higher significant strikes. He has higher strikes from distance, so higher stand-up strikes as well. And then slightly higher strikes to the head than Makhachev as well. And even, ground strikes as well. He's, slightly higher on average too. So all the stats point to Charles, but it also doesn't take into account ground control, back control, things like that. So
I think the thing with Charles, though, is that I don't feel that he used his range the best, the way that he could use it, which when you're looking at those graphs, you can see that generally he throws a lot of those kicks from a distance, and I didn't see enough body shots, in my opinion, although I think we were looking at the stats before and you said, again, this is one of those things, when I was watching that fight with Charles, I was thinking I'm not seeing him put in a lot of use or as much use as I'd like to see him kicking the body and moving Makhachev back. But then you said that in fact he threw more than he does on average. So I don't know how they said this was a fucking significant strikes or not. I don't know how they come up with that a lot of the time. So it's hard with the stats. You know what I mean?
And even with on average for leg strikes, Charles does, he throws a lot more for the rest of his career than he obviously did with Makhachev. But on average per round, he throws 4 or 5 times as much as Makhachev strikes to the legs as well.
He's very, very good. Makhachev, I feel that adjusting to fighters, I think it was just an interesting little conundrum that Alex posed for him, which was difficult for him to overcome. But I think it's almost disrespectful to Alex, dude. Alex is one of the best fighters to ever do it, pound for pound to ever do it, and I don't, to just steamroll him is a different thing, and he didn't steamroll Alex, and it was just hard. Islam was finding it very hard to adjust to that. I think Alex is a very difficult person to adjust to. That's a thing as well. Whilst Oliveira is super skilled, I think it's easier to find guys that are long and good at jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of those kind of black belts around, longer arms and legs that are good at jiu-jitsu or good at Muay Thai. But guys like Alex are real, he's an anomaly, an anomaly of nature, His nature's miracle is young Alex. I think that from what I see with Makhachev as well, most of his work is done with his left hand. He mostly throws it straight to the chin or to the body, often following a jab feint. In addition, Makhachev does a nice job of mixing in the occasional left hook around the guard rather than just firing straight. I just wrote some notes here. The way that he feints, he always feints towards the lead leg with his right hand or even his head. So as the opponent tries to pull the leg away from a potential shot, the head comes forward directly into his overhand. Leading with the head, however, especially how badly he used to do it before, is what led to the Martin's knockout. So these are the things that throw people off, you know what I mean, with Makhachev. He's very, very good at feinting, and he's feinting with that jab, and he's dropping his level and feinting towards that lead leg, and then he's throwing his overhand left. Somebody wrote here, what's so impressive about Volk is he came so late to the game, says the reality filter. The reality filter says, imagine if he trained MMA from age 7 like Islam did. But Volkanovski was been wrestling for a long time, dude. I remember him at the wrestling comps when he was a little kid. Like he was like little, 10, 12 years old. Like a lot of, he was there all the time. I think that's a misconception, like that somehow or other that became like a kind of urban myth because he wrestled as a little kid, dude. I was there. Isat says with the Alex and Islam fight, I think so many people were so impressed with Volk because the consensus was Islam was going to mop the floor with him. Yeah, I don't know if I thought, I don't know. I didn't think he was going to mop the floor with him, but I did think that if Islam, this is what I thought. I thought Islam would grapple better against Alex than he did, and I thought Alex would have better stand-up. And Islam ended up having better stand-up than I thought, and Alex ended up having better takedown defense than I thought. And I actually thought both of them were good, but both of them just showed me different level of what they were both capable of, which is what's really scary. Like that's what I took out of that fight, because I really thought Islam's striking wouldn't be as good. I didn't think Islam was going to be able to strike with Alex, and I didn't think Alex would be able to stop Islam from taking him down, and it kind of went in reverse. It was weird. That's me. That's my take on that. Sammy?
The other thing I'd probably notice is obviously they're both high-level grapplers, and in terms of takedowns, Islam on average per round, his takedown rates are about 70% higher than Charles as well.
Yeah, Charles again is a feast or famine kind of guy. Like he'll shoot, he'll miss. But the other thing that happens with Charles is he'll shoot on you, and if he doesn't get it, he does like what Damian Maia used to do, where they go into half guard and start working from there. He's very, very clever at doing all that type of stuff. Whereas Islam really, really picks his shots, he really does. I think I'm just going to say this quickly. I think that like arguing about like really close fights is kind of weird to me, to be honest with you. Like, you can't, like, that fight's close. Like it's going to go whichever way. There are really close fights. There's a difference between a close fight and a decision you didn't agree with necessarily, whatever. I'll go back to Sean O'Malley and Peter Yan fight. I thought Peter Yan won, but I don't disagree with the decision, if that makes sense. Like, I can't say, fuck, Sean O'Malley got, he didn't. Nah, dude, it was a close fight. Again, I thought Peter Yan won. They gave it to Sean O'Malley. I don't disagree with that. It wasn't that different where a subjective panel of judges can, people are going to give different opinions on that. So you have to allow for that. Yeah, sorry, Sammy, go on.
Oh, just a more question from me. Is it different watching it in person than watching it on TV for the judges as well?
Yeah, 100%. That's, again, goes with the significant strikes. There's shots, man, where I've been in the, like, ringside. I've been in someone's corner and people's corner, and they've hit people or they've gotten hit, and where I'm like, oh fuck, it's over, you know, and the person just moves, like they moved, and like it didn't get picked up in the same way. Maybe where it happened closer to me than it did to any of the other judges. So maybe no judges saw it, or maybe only one judge saw it. That's why when people go, I can't believe one judge gave it, because they're looking at it from their perspective in that fight. Like I said to you, there's been fights. I'm not going to go through the fights or whatever, because people are going to get stuck on what I say and not on the concept of what I'm saying. There's been fights where they gave the round to the other person, and when I looked back on TV, I agree with the round that, from what I can see on TV or from what I saw from that angle. But what I saw in the corner and the shots that were landed by somebody else, or by my guy, or by the other guy even sometimes, was a different story. Like I saw a person get hurt, you know, or I saw the way that they reacted to it, or their body language, or the sound of the shot and the sound that the person made when they got hit, you know, and nobody else might have heard that. It might have happened. Like I've been in the corner where people get ground and pounded, like I could touch them. Do you know what I mean? And they're getting ground and pounded, and like you can hear the person. Sometimes it's just hitting their arms and it's all right. But sometimes you can hear the person, like it hits their glove, but it's still hitting their head. And you can hear them like making a sound like they're getting hurt, you know. And if the judge is on the other side of the octagon, they're not going to hear that, you know, nor the commentators if it's not happening right next to them. So, yeah, it is very, very different. As far as like, again, I don't want to get into it because we're not even talking about the what was I going to say? I'm not really talking about that Volkanovski and Islam fight too much, because people are asking about the IV and all of that and the rest of it. And just say, yeah, it's not a thing. So go on, Sammy, if you have another one. Oh, one of the things that I liked, I saw people say Volkanovski was the first person to do that, where, you know, he was working the butterfly against Islam. He actually wasn't. Sarukian did it before that, and Sarukian did it really, really well as well. The way that it was high level, and I'm sure that Alex is smart guy, his team's smart. They saw that, they worked on that, they did it really, really well. It'd be interesting because Charles's game is different. You know, it's a very, very different game. I like. Isat says, I don't know why you're on such a tirade. I don't know who you're talking to. But anyways, if you're asking, oh, okay, the reality filter. Sorry, I thought you were asking me. I was going to say, because this is my podcast. My wife bought me this stuff. You have to get your own wife to buy you shit if you want to. I'm allowed to have a tirade. But then I realized he wasn't talking to me. No, like the way that he did that with Sarukian, and the way that because you know the other thing that Alex didn't do in that fight, which is, again, Charles did it, Alex didn't do it, happened with Sarukian as well. So I'm using like this little trinity of people. Again, I'll go back to what I said. Islam throws the knee. Sarukian goes to throw the knee. He sweeps him. Charles and him were up against the cage. Charles put him up against the cage, and he was in a good position. Islam doesn't like being backed up like that. Islam threw the knee. Charles went to throw the knee. Islam threw him. When Islam and Volkanovski were up against the cage like that, and Islam did the same thing to him, Volkanovski did a knee. And it just shows to me, like, this is high level chess that's happening. Like Alex had this like really, really well researched, you know, and he implemented it really, really well. I'm just curious as to what's going to happen moving forward, you know, with these two now, like what adjustments are going to be made, because I feel that out of the two of them, Charles has a lot more areas to improve from those fights. Sammy, if you want to go.
Yeah, so just looking at Charles, he seems to be very consistent from round 1 to round 2. Obviously, the third round, you know, he hasn't had any fights that have gone past the third round. He's only had 3 fights that have even gone the distance of 3 rounds. So when you look at those kind of averages in that final round, they're always going to be a bit lower because they're not going to go the full distance. But but for his first 2 rounds, it's kind of eerily exactly the same. So he's got 14 significant strikes on average in both the first and the second round. 8 strikes on average in the first and second round, both to the head, 4 to the body, 2. Like it's very similar. Whereas Islam, he's increased his work rate from the first to the second round, and then even in total strikes, he's increased from 22 to 27 to 29 as well. So, yeah.
And so, in a nutshell, what do you take from that, Sammy?
Oh, just that Charles is very consistent from his first to his second round. Even ground strikes and stuff like that. Like on average, he's exactly the same from round 1 to round 2. So I don't know if that comes into play of having that consistency as well. But and obviously when you look at Islam, is only one has gone the fifth. Yeah, only one has gone the 5th round. And obviously that's with Alex, and then he's had 2 that have gone to round 4 as well. But obviously that round 5, Alex is totally different. You've already spoken that as well. But obviously his work rate in terms of strikes and things like that just dropped dramatically because Alex was on top in that round too.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody says here, Reality Filter says, has Charles' chins gone? He can't keep getting dropped and relying on his guard. I don't think he's got a bad chin necessarily because he fucking takes a shot. He does take a shot. He you saw him taking the shots from Kevin Lee, and Kevin Lee, he's got long arms, hits fucking hard. I've seen many times seen him in real life. He's fucking a stout dude, man. So he's taken big shots. He always gets cracked. He gets cracked by Gaethje and everything. The problem is, like I said, I think he stands very tall and his head movement's not the best. Now, he gets some advantages from that because his real rangefinder, his true rangefinder are the kicks, the teeps and front kicks. That's what he really uses. And then he likes to frame all of these, help a tall guy. I don't think he's as tall necessarily at lightweight compared to the other lightweights, a little bit bigger than he would have been at featherweight. But I think the problem with Islam is that Islam had no problems following him into the guard, which a lot of guys don't want to do. And even if they do, it's not done with total and complete confidence. Not many people will follow him. Even the people that do follow him into his guard, they're kind of like stalemating that position. Whereas Islam was not. Islam was aggressive and looking for it and had no problem following him into the guard. So I think that's the big thing. Like he cracked him. Islam cracked Charles. And a lot of people think, like, you know how you can, that setup that Islam does to choke the far side, like you're already pinning the person when you're trying to head arm choke the far side, not the near side. And so you have the Turk ride on this side, which is the half guard, but it's a half guard when there's no shields anymore. So you've already passed that. And now you've got that arm trap. So it's a very, very, very strong pin. And even Charles tried to turn. He did try and turn. He was still trying to defend, even though he got cracked the way he did. Islam was just on point that fight, you know. That was so good, such a good fight. But Charles did have moments in that fight, and it's just a question of, at that level, how you're going to capitalize on it. Can you capitalize on it? Will you capitalize on it? Sammy?
Yeah, nothing much to add, I suppose, to that. But just looking at the fight breakdown with Oliveira and Makhachev as well. So here you've got a new one. So we've got total strikes and significant strikes landed by each fighter as well. And then that's supposed to be attempted down there. But you've got, the work rate. So in the total fight, he's landed 72 of 86 strikes in total, Islam. And then on that first one, 51, and only 12 of those have been significant. But I was going to see if you want to actually have a look at that, the Kevin Lee fight as well.
Let's look at it.
Sick. So, in the Kevin Lee, against Kevin Lee, in total, Kevin Lee's landed 61 of 100 strikes. 41 of those were considered significant. Oliveira's landed 43 to his 41. And in the first round, if you want to
say again, sorry, Sandy, what'd you say?
So in the total fight, Oliveira's landed 43 of 65 significant strikes, whereas Kevin Lee has landed 41 of 80.
And that was in the first round?
No, that was in the total fight. In the first round.
Okay.
In the first round, Oliveira's landed 13 of 18. Kevin has landed 15 of 29. So he's landed about 50% strike rate, whereas like significant strike rate, whereas Oliveira's landed with like much more accuracy as well.
How much control time did Kevin Lee have?
In that first round, 210 seconds in total.
And what's that like average-wise? 210 seconds is a long time to be held down. That was Kevin Lee did that to Charles?
And then Charles only had 11 seconds of control time in that first round.
Yeah, so that's the stuff that, and Kevin Lee's a very good grappler, very good submission grappler. He's very, very, very good. But and it just shows like in the second round, can we look at how much control time Charles, just throughout round to round, how much control time Kevin Lee had per round? Obviously, it's no secret Kevin Lee lost. We all know this, but it's just an interesting thing. I will say, sorry, let me just say something. People are saying, how strong's Volko? He's a fucking like a little gorilla. I can say this firsthand. He's a fucking little gorilla. He's a monster. He's like somebody got legit got a middleweight and sawed the ends of his arms and legs off a middleweight, a big middleweight, you know? That's legit, not even fucking exaggerating that. So he doesn't feel like a featherweight, not even close. Doesn't feel like a lightweight. He's exactly that, like a little, his head's big, his torso's fucking huge, his legs are huge, everything's huge, but they just sawed off the bottom of his arms and legs, and then he's like a little fucking Westinghouse fridge of a man, and ridiculously fucking strong. Like, but he's not just strong. I'll just say this as well. He's not just strong. He's fucking smart. Like he's a hard worker. I can't stress that enough. Like he is a hard worker. I have to give him that. You know, he's a very, very hard worker. But he's not just a hard worker. He's a smart worker. You know, he knows amongst many things what to do. You know, he's very, very physically gifted, but he works hard too. You know. Anyways, sorry. We're going back to control time that Charles gave up.
Yeah, so just obviously seeing in that first round, obviously Kevin Lee seemed to have a slight edge. Just he landed a few more significant strikes than Oliveira. He had that control time of 210 seconds in the round. In that second round, Oliveira had landed 28 significant strikes to Kevin's 16. But Kevin had 176 seconds of control time in that second round. So, you know, almost 3 minutes of that second round.
So Kevin Lee had how many minutes in the first round?
In the first round, he had 210 seconds.
You're the mathematician. How many minutes is that, Sam?
So 3.5 minutes. So, yeah.
3.5 minutes. And how many in the second round? This is just I just want to...
176 seconds.
So what's that?
Almost 3 minutes. Almost 3 minutes.
So let's say, for example, in a possible 10 minutes, he gave up 7.5 minutes of control time in those first two rounds. Do you know what I mean? Like, and you look at that, and don't get me wrong, like Charles was very dangerous and he was looking very good and he did end up winning that fight. And even with the strikes in that fight, he looks probably the more dangerous of the two. But it is like there's like a third person in there with you in those fights, and that's the clock. You have to beat the clock. Like, no matter what people want to say, you can fucking have a cry about it or whatever. But if somebody holds you down for that long, it leaves you 2.5 minutes across 2 rounds. I don't know if we're going to go through every single round, but we can. He leaves you 2.5 minutes across every round to fucking do your thing, unless you submit him from the bottom, which Charles can do, and he did do. But what I'm saying is that's a lot of control time to give up. That's like 70% of the control time you gave that up in those 2 rounds, and you're fighting a guy like Islam who's every bit as good of a grappler, top grappler as Kevin Lee, if not better, and he's also an accomplished striker as well that has physical attributes and physical gifts with a wealth of experience both in the professional ranks and probably 300 plus combat sambo matches. So yeah, like it's an interesting thing. Like that's one of the big question marks that I have for Charles, is just giving up that control time, and the fact that he's never seen a 4th or a 5th round is also scary too, because I think that Islam obviously has, and it was in a war, and I think he'll be more prepared for Charles than Charles is to head into those darker places. Sammy?
Yeah, just in that 3rd round as well, obviously didn't seem to last as long, but then Charles had only given up 4 seconds of control time in that, but that's obviously where he submitted him as well.
That was in which round? Because I can't remember.
In that 3rd round.
Right. Homeless in America says, why don't they have combat sambo records? Because I think a lot of those combat sambo records, like Olympic freestyle wrestling matches that you've had when you were under 13. You know what I mean? Like Volkanovski's wrestling record, I don't even know if they have it. They would probably have it somewhere. The combat sambo record, you would have it. You'd have to look up like Feeler's combat. It's not called Feeler anymore, but they would have it. I don't think that it's like a thing, because some of those matches would have been when he was 14. They're not even like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like it would, anyways, as we were saying, Sammy?
No, is there any Makhachev fight that you'd like to look at?
No, not necessarily just like this. Is this all the slides we have?
No, we can look at you can look at them next to each other as well. It just depends on what fight. Yeah. So if you can break down, we've got the Islam Volkanovski fight and the last fight as well of Oliveira too, with Benil Darush on the right-hand side.
Can you talk us through that fight, the one with Benil Darush and Islam?
Yeah, so obviously it only goes for 1 round, so all the stuff we're looking at is just for the first round anyway. In terms of control, and this is like up against the cage and stuff as well, Benil has he had an advantage of 164 seconds compared to Charles's 31. But in terms of ground strikes, Oliveira clearly ahead. So he had 16 ground strikes attributed to him, whereas Benil Darush only had 6 in total for that first round. So in terms of significant strikes, Oliveira landed more than double significant strikes, and then nearly almost 3 times as much of strikes to the head as well.
All right. Well, taking all of that into account, it's that time of the night where I ask you this, Sammy. The odds for this fight, right, for Islam is a -334 and Charles is a +250. Do you think that that's accurate? Of course, past performance, everything, da-da-da. Do you think that's warranted? Do you think that's accurate?
I think Islam's going to win, so I'd have to say yes if I was a betting man. But it's obviously so hard with Oliveira. He has maybe it's just because I'm a fan, but he just yeah, obviously he has such a good record in that as well, off his back. Obviously submissions and everything else that he has, but also so does Makhachev too. So, yeah, and just looking at their last fight, yeah, I'd have to still go with Makhachev on that one as well.
I think, I don't know if 3-1 is. What are their ages, Semi? If you can bring them up, head to head. I think Charles is a little bit older, but Charles has got more mileage on him in as far as like just wars that he's had and everything. So it's always hard to with those kind of fighters, and when they start to get to that 33, 34, it starts to get difficult because you know that they're not far from this is it, that's it's over. You know what I mean? Hey, thank you very much, Isat. Take care. Hey guys, like and subscribe if you haven't already, please. Yeah, it's always hard to say when that day is going to come. I think that Charles has had a few more wars, and he's also reached that point a lot of times where people are like, he's fucking done. He's done. And that's happened a few times, and he wasn't done. I don't know. I think that Islam is the favorite, and rightfully so. I just don't know that he's a 3-1 favorite. You know what I mean? I really don't think so. I think that Charles has a lot more things to show than he did in that fight. I don't think he showed them. I think that I'm a little bit. I don't think I'm going for Charles, to be honest with you. I don't think I'm going for Islam. I don't really have a horse in the race, but I definitely think that Charles had a lot more to show. I think we saw Islam fucking fight out of his skin that fight. You know what I mean? He just did so well, and everything he touched turned to gold in that fight. He looked unbeatable in that fight. Do you want to talk us through this, Semi?
Just as a final one, so if we just look at lightweight, the lightweight bouts and stuff from a historical sense, if you're looking at how fighters just win in general, submission, knockouts, decisions, and things like that, just comparing last year to this year, there has been an overall kind of concentrated increase in the number of knockouts. So last year in total, 33% of the wins were by knockout, and this year, so far for this year, it's been 41%. But there has been a reduction in the submissions. So last year, 25% of the wins were from submissions, and this year it's only 12%.
So what's your call, Sammy? I think it depends too. Like, sorry, I was going to say to you, I think that in that lightweight division, there's like a bit of a phenomenon where it's the top 5 guys. It was real hard to break into fighting them. Like the top 4 guys kind of thing. It was really based around popularity. You know what I mean? So you had like the BMF belt that has been fought for. You have fucking Poirier and Gaethje fought, and then Gaethje fought Chandler. Like there was this like kind of like a little like almost lovers triangle going around. Poirier and McGregor. There was just this pop, and these are all hitters for the most part. You know what I mean? They're not really submission guys that are known for submissions like Gaethje, Chandler, Poirier, McGregor. These are guys are all for the most part going to knock you out. You know what I mean? If they can get their way, and these are the guys that fought a lot of these top end lightweight fights. You know that we watched. But of course, this trend is taken across all the fights, not just that group of guys. But yeah, that's what I was saying. I think it was hard even for Darius he had to win. He won like 8 fights in a row or something. When he fought Charles, I would have been 9 for him to get to the belt. Yeah, sorry, I just thought I'd throw that.
No, sweet. Makes sense.
Yeah. All right. So who's your pick then, Sammy? Gun to your head.
Makhachev. But yeah. Favoritism would be to Oliveira, just for liking his style and things like that, and I've watched his grappling in that for a bit. But yeah, I just still have to say the favorite to be Makhachev.
Yeah, I think Makhachev should be the favorite if you're going to bet. You know, I can't tell you who to bet for or what not to bet for. I don't know that he's a 3-1 favorite. So plus 250 is Charles a plus 250 underdog. I think that's like that's probably I don't know, even not a bad bet because Charles can win this. He hits super hard too. This is another thing that people don't understand. He does possess one shot power as well himself, and coupled with his grappling, this is no joke. You know what I mean? This is no joke. So I don't think that it's a bad bet at plus 250. Charles, do you know what I mean? Because he can crack himself and he's got very good grappling. And I think that he's got a lot more adjustments to make than Islam. And I don't think he's stupid. And I think he would have made a lot of those things. So I still think Islam, but I think that Charles is. I don't think those odds are right. You know what I mean? I think that Charles is probably. Do you want to explain the minus 350 plus 250 to people?
Oh, I actually. Yeah, I haven't followed all that anyway. So all the on the money, under the money, all that stuff. But yeah, I'd just give it a Google.
Well, maybe you'll be able to say it in your mathematician voice. But yeah, I do think from what I can see, it's I don't think that Charles should be that much of an underdog. I just don't see it like that. I think that Makhachev will win. He should win. That's the smart money. That's a smart bet. That's a smart choice. But I think that Charles has the ability to make that fight a lot closer than you saw in that fight. I don't think I don't think it was thing. Yeah. So that's a thing. Yeah, with his glasses and that, dude, that was fucking bad. Beetlejuice says, "Hey, Playboy, great show. As always, love your work. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much." Homeless in America says he's going to pick Islam by KO in round 3, but he wants Charles to win. Reality Filter says, head says Islam, heart says Charles, same as the last fight. The Reality Filter says 60-40 Islam, in my opinion. Yeah, like I said, it's hard for me like to go, this is thing, because I do know that Charles has, man, if Charles lands a good shot, whole fight's different. If he lands a good shot, and Islam, because the same thing that happened to Charles, this is what I'm saying. The same thing that happened to Charles could happen to Islam super easily. The same thing. Charles is a fucking demon on the ground, and if he rocks Islam even a little bit, he's going to jump on him and submit him. You know, this could happen as well, and he can crack, and he can submit. You know, so who knows? Joe Schmo says, "Good evening, my fine gentleman. Good evening, sir." Homeless in America says 3:28 a.m. here. Thank you for joining us, Homeless in America. Sammy and I were talking today, and we are going to try and make the times a little bit more US friendly. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for everything. And I will catch you very, very soon, guys. We will do more of these breakdowns. We are working on them, guys. We're trying to get them better. Sammy has put in a huge amount of effort to do the stuff that he does. I have no idea how he does what he does. This is pretty crazy. So we're working on it. We're trying to get the presentations to look better. We're trying to do everything we can. The Reality Filter says we need an Izzy and Sean breakdown. We do have it up. It's already up. It's been up for a while. So if you want to see the Izzy and Sean breakdown, it's already on our channel. And if you want to see the Costa breakdown, it's already up as well. So we already got both of them up. So please go and have a look at the Izzy and Sean breakdown. They are going to be fighting this weekend. So have a look at it. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you guys want us to do maybe a statistical breakdown of the press conference for Sean and Israel, because that's going to be fucking funny. Yeah. Anyways, guys, take care. Thank you very much. Sammy, you're a legend. Don't ever change. Nothing that people say bad about you should stick to your mind, because you are a special pedal, mate. So thank you very much. Yeah, so let us know in the comments who you think is going to win and why. Let us know what you thought about the last fight, what you're going to think about this fight. Let us know who you think is going to win on the weekend. Or just go by in the comments and let us know that you're thinking of us. Thank you very much, guys. I will catch you guys soon. Thanks, Sammy.
Thanks, Mark.